Zano, what grade are you in, man?
Ninth.
Ninth. What school?
Greenbrier.
Greenbrier High School. All right. Who do you think is the biggest rapper of all time right now?
Right now, I don't know.
It's Kendrick Lamar. That's hands down. Zano.
Okay.
I don't really think it's debatable. I'm not saying like my personal opinion. I think that's pretty solid. While we were at youth, apparently Kendrick Lamar drops a new song randomly on his Instagram channel where you just listen to the song, right? We listen to it together.
Yep.
And the point isn't really to go into the song too much. But in the song, he mentions Lecrae. He mentions D1. Are you familiar with Kendrick Lamar, first of all?
A little bit, not really.
A little bit, not really. Don't listen to him too much. But you are familiar with Lecrae,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Would you ever expect Kendrick Lamar to mention Lecrae in a song?
No.
No. Do you know any of their history at all?
Mm-mm.
No. What about D1? Are you familiar with D1?
No.
So D1 is another Christian rapper. He's been making Christian rap for at least 10 years. So potentially close to as long as Lecrae has.
Yeah.
Where the idea of these two Christian rappers being mentioned in a song by arguably the biggest rap artist right now was pretty substantial.
Yeah. I was pretty surprised he said Lecrae.
Yeah.
Honestly, I mean, I don't really listen to a lot of Kendrick songs, but what I've heard is like most of them aren't like focused towards that way, like Christian rap. So I was pretty surprised, like when he said Lecrae and stuff like that.
Yeah. For me, it stood out to me that Kendrick Lamar mentioned these two rappers, Christian rappers, but he didn't mention them for their music.
Yeah.
Like in the line, Kendrick Lamar didn't say, "Sometimes I wonder if I should make music like Lecrae," or "Sometimes I wonder if I should make music like D1." That's not what he said. But what he said was,
"Sometimes I wonder what Lecrae would do.
Sometimes I feel like I should have a heart like D1," is what he said. Where to me that stands out because he's, again, not saying I should make music like this person, this Christian, but he's saying, I feel like I want to be like him.
Yeah.
What do you think of that? What do you think of the concept of one of the biggest rappers saying, I'm paraphrasing, but to me, it sounds like he's saying, I look at the type of man that Lecrae is, and I look at the type of man that D1 is, and that inspires me.
Yeah.
What do you think of that?
Well, I think that's like pretty cool because most rappers that are, at least that I've listened to, like don't do that and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he was like empowered by him or saw something in like Lecrae and D1 that he wanted or something that he was missing.
You have to assume, and because we don't know Kendrick Lamar, right? We don't know Lecrae. We don't know any of these people. We don't hang out with them. So to some degree, we have to use our imagination and consider like, whoa, what would make Kendrick Lamar name drop these two guys? Where for me, I imagine that he's had conversations with these two guys, that he's been in the same room with them. Maybe they've hung out. So my point is like, I'd imagine that they're just hanging out. They're just chopping it up. And Kendrick Lamar is listening to these two guys be themselves in a way that later in life, and he even puts it in a song that he says, I sometimes think about how I would handle the situation that I'm in if I were him or if I were that guy. You ever find yourself in a situation where you consider, man, I don't know what to do right now. What would this person do if they were in my shoes? You ever think like that?
Yeah.
Who do you tend to think about?
Probably people older than me or like people I looked up to.
I think that's really cool. I think it's cool that he's saying there's something about their life that can inspire me to do the right thing, where I'm at least going to consider it. And the commonality between those two rappers is Jesus Christ. That, again, we're using our imagination to some degree, but he's saying, I look at how those two guys live their life, maybe the things that they value, the things that they prioritize, the way that they make their decisions, it's intentional in a way that makes me want to be intentional. And so that's awesome, where I think that is the power of what Jesus wants to do through the lives of people who follow him. That if you commit your life to following Jesus, then God could have said, hey, Zano, you made that commitment, you made that decision to trust Jesus. Cool, we're gonna bring you up to heaven now. Beep, boop, beep, boop, boop. That's my like sound for the heaven button. He could have brought you to heaven immediately, but he didn't. You're still on this earth because I think God's desire, his design is to say, Zano, you're gonna be a ninth grader where you're gonna be in a classroom with certain people who are gonna be able to look at how you live your life, and they might be inspired to make the right decisions. They might be inspired to choose to help people because they see how you help people. They might be inspired to, be willing to sacrifice popularity for the sake of being respectful to the educators. They might be willing to invite that kid over there that's sitting by themselves to their lunch table, even though their friends that are at that same lunch table are laughing at that kid. But because Zano is willing to go over there and have a conversation, that maybe your friends are now inspired to do these things too. Where I think it's cool because that's God's design, which means the second part of why it's cool to me is that it ties into what we just discussed in youth, like empowerment. Thomas shared his 2-minute miracle where it's like, Zano, like you are empowered. You're able to be that Lecrae. You're able to be that D1 that sets a good example of what Jesus would look like if he were a ninth grader by the way that you live your life. Can you imagine that?
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
You feel like there are people at your school that you could look to and say, like, that's the Lecrae. That's D1. They are the same Christian, God-loving, people-serving, helpful, kind, patient, gentle, compassionate, brave. They're the same person from first period through seventh period. It doesn't matter if they're on the bus or in the cafeteria or on the football field or in the locker room. They're the same person all the way through in a way that consistency that they're showing is able to set an example for people to look up to. Is there anybody in your school that you feel like embodies that?
Honestly, right now, I don't think I've seen or known anybody like that. I mean, I've seen people that seem to do that, but I haven't seen them throughout the day, so I don't really know.
And that's a very good point. Like, you're not around everyone enough to see if that consistency is really consistency. It can look like that in first period, but maybe it fades off by third period. It can look like that, in the cafeteria, but maybe it fades off by the time they get on the bus to go back home and they're a completely different person. It does raise the question, like, man, should it fade? Do you feel like there should be a point where the Lecrae stops being the Lecrae? Do you feel like there's a point where if you are a follower of Jesus, that it's okay for you to not look like Jesus in certain areas?
No, I don't think so.
Why not?
Because if you give your life to Jesus, you want to give all of you to him and not just go one place and act like a Christian in one place and not fake love for him.
That's good. It's like what Thomas said in his 2-minute miracle. He said he didn't want any parts of Jesus, but the more he learned about God, he started to realize that God wanted every single part of him, which is absolutely true. So, yeah, it's something to think about, man. Like, it inspires me personally, where I'm like, man, like, I want to make sure that I am giving all of the parts of me, of who I am, to Jesus in a way that surrenders to him so that he can shape me and mold me to look more like him, but that I maintain that in all the areas of my life. So I hope you do the same, young man.
Yeah.